All right, today we're going to talk about a word you probably hear, oh, I don't know, a dozen times a day, resources. But what does it actually mean? Well, it turns out the answer is way more surprising and a whole lot more important than you might think. Let's get into it. So let me just ask you this straight up. When I say the word resource, what's the very first image that pops into your head? I'm guessing it's probably something like coal or water, maybe even solar power. And hey, you're not wrong, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. You see, in the world of geography, the idea of a resource is so much bigger. To them, it's literally anything in our environment that can satisfy our needs. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. For anything to officially get that resource label, it has to pass a three-part test. Okay, so for something to count as a resource, it has to check these three boxes. First, it's got to be technologically accessible. I mean, if it's on Mars and we can't get there, it's not a resource for us, right? Second, it has to be economically feasible. Think of it this way. If you find a mountain of gold, but it costs you $1 billion to dig out just $1 million worth, well, that's not a resource, it's a money pit. And finally, and this one's fascinating, it has to be culturally acceptable. This is where human values come into play and really decide what we consider valuable in the first place. So here's our game plan for today. We've just tackled what a resource really is. Next, we're going to dive into how we sort all of them, then get into the huge problems our resource use has created. After that, we'll talk about the one big idea that might just save us, sustainable development. We'll even zoom into India for a real-world look at this and wrap it all up by digging into the most fundamental resource of all, land and soil. So how on earth do we even begin to organize everything, from a single ray of sunshine to a massive vein of iron ore? Well, we classify them, and understanding how we sort them is actually key to figuring out how we can use them without messing everything up. The first and probably easiest way we sort resources is just by looking at where they came from. You've got your biotic resources. That's all the living stuff from the biosphere, like plants, animals, you name it. And then you have the abiotic resources, all the non-living things, like rocks, minerals, and metals. Pretty straightforward, right? Living versus non-living. All right, next up is a big one, exhaustibility. In other words, can we run out of it? On one side, you have renewable resources, like solar and wind power, that just keep on coming. But on the other, you have non-renewable resources, like fossil fuels. These things took literally millions of years to form, and once we burn through them, they're gone, for good. Then, of course, there's the question of who gets to use this stuff. We break that down by ownership. You've got individual resources, like the land your house is on. There are community resources, like a public park. Then you have national resources, think a country's mineral deposits or its railway system. And finally, there are the international ones, like the vast open ocean. And get this, because this is where things get really interesting. Even if you own a piece of land, like it's yours, a national government often has the legal power to just take it for the public good, to build a highway or a dam. It's a real-world clash between individual ownership and the needs of a nation. Okay, so we've defined all these amazing resources. We've sorted them into neat little boxes. But there's a huge but coming. Our relentless and, let's be honest, often thoughtless use of these resources has backed us into a corner, creating some massive global problems. This is the heart of the resource dilemma. And yeah, this is the price tag. When we use resources like there's no tomorrow, we get some of the biggest crises facing humanity today. We're talking global warming, the hole in the ozone layer, land turning into desert, and just pollution everywhere. These aren't just abstract ideas. They are the direct consequences of our actions. Okay, so that's the heavy stuff. It's a bit of a mess, right? The big question now is, what do we do about it? How do we get out of this? Well, thankfully, there's a powerful idea that offers a path forward, a way to grow without completely destroying the planet for the people who come after us. And that big idea is called sustainable development. At its core, it's all about balance. It says, sure, let's develop and improve our lives, but let's do it without wrecking the environment. And crucially, it says we can't be so selfish as to use everything up and leave nothing behind. It's really all about being a good ancestor. And look, this wasn't just some theory cooked up in a university. In 1992, this idea went totally mainstream. We're talking about the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. Leaders from over 100 countries got together and signed on to a plan called Agenda 21. It was a landmark moment, a global agreement that we had to fight poverty and environmental destruction at the exact same time. All right, so that's the big global theory. But how does this whole sustainable development thing actually work on the ground? in the real world. To figure that out, let's zoom in on India, a country that is a perfect case study of the challenges and the absolute necessity of smart resource planning. And this right here, this table really spells out the puzzle. See, India has tons of resources, but they're spread out all unevenly. You've got a state like Jharkhand, which is sitting on a gold mine of minerals and coal, but it lacks basic water infrastructure. Then you look at Arunachal Pradesh, which has water galore, but not the infrastructure to make use of it. This is exactly why a national plan is so critical, to balance things out. Okay, so from that huge national scale, let's drill down to maybe the most fundamental resource there is. I'm talking about the very ground beneath our feet. I'm talking about land, and more specifically, the soil that covers it. And it is so much more than just dirt. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. And India has this incredible variety of soils, each with its own special talent. Alluvial soil is the most widespread, and it's fantastic for growing staples like wheat and sugarcane. Then you've got black soil, which also goes by Regur soil. It's amazing for growing cotton because it holds onto moisture so well. And in the super rainy parts of the country, you'll find laterite soil, which is just perfect for tea, coffee, and cashews. But here's the thing. This incredible resource is super fragile. Wind and water can just strip away that precious fertile topsoil. In some extreme cases, running water can literally carve deep channels or gullies into the land, making it completely useless for farming. It's a massive problem. But the good news is it's not a lost cause, not at all. People have developed some really clever ways to fight back and conserve the soil. Things like contour plowing, which basically means plowing along the curves of a hill to slow water down, or terrace farming, where you turn steep slopes into a series of flat steps, and even planting rows of trees, called shelter belts, to protect the soil from the wind. And really, when you look at all these incredible methods, whether it's contour plowing or building terraces, they all boil down to one simple, powerful idea. It's all about working with nature, not against it. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. But I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Now that we've seen how everything from a gust of wind to a handful of dirt can be a critical resource, I want you to ask yourself, what's the most overlooked resource in your own daily life?